that was one of those micro deaths. That was me pivoting and going, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? Because all I've ever done, like a lot of us, is dance. From the time I was 2, I've never wanted to do anything else. I've never thought of anything else. I've never had to do anything else. So it was a difficult time.
I'm Priscilla Pfeiffer, and welcome to Spark Your Inner Fire, a podcast for artists, performers, and closet creatives. You bring a lighter, and I'll bring the fuel. It's time to spark your inner fire. Welcome, everyone, to the Spark Your Inner Fire podcast. I have a super special guest today, Danial Brown, one of my favorite choreographers. He choreographed one of my favorite shows I've ever performed in, and I'm so honored to have him as a guest today. Say hi, Danial.
Hi, Priscilla. Hi, everybody. I am so honored to be here. You know, you are one of my favorite people. I love everything you do, and we've been wanting to do this for a while, so I'm glad that we're finally getting a chance to connect and have fun today.
Yes. Last time I was at his house, the house he's in right now, and we were getting ready for a show in Portland, and Limelight. It was one of my, I love that show. Amazing show. And we had the most amazing conversations. And I was like, I should be recording this.
We really did. You know, I think, you know how it is, obviously, backstage and dancers and the way we connect. And when you do a show, you know, it's more than just a job, because you actually do get to know people on different levels, and you communicate differently because you're not just showing up and going home. It's your art, it's your being, it's your soul that you're putting out there. And so I think because of those things, you connect with your fellow performers and you become a family. And that Limelight cast, there was really something special with us. I mean, we connected, and really, I mean, we loved each other before, but we came together, and I think all of our love grew deeper. And not being able to do the show, but also live in a house together where we were eating together and cooking together and hiking together and stretching, and then doing the show and everything on top of that. And then at night, as you know, you come home, you have a glass of wine or two, and you talk about life. And I think it was a really special time, that group, having you guys here in my house. I think filled my house with so much love and so much positive energy that I can still feel it when I come home today. It was a really special moment. I'm glad we had that.
So special. I'm so glad I got to experience that, especially right before the quarantine, everything locked down. We got to experience that. I'm so grateful.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I'm glad you had the same feeling.
Absolutely. It was such a bonded family feeling. I love that. And that's the best. Those are the best memories, I think, backstage, is that you create that bond, like you were saying. And it's not just a career for us. It's a passion that runs so deep. It's a lifestyle. That's a great way to put it, because it's what we've been doing our whole lives. It's not just something we started learning at 18 after high school, you know?
Yeah.
So it's in our blood.
And I know some people, yeah, exactly. But it's true. I think that's something that people within the entertainment industry, I'm sure it happens with all forms of performance, but I can really speak from that dancer aspect of things, is that it's more than something you've chosen to do for your life. And yes, most of us go through a point where, like, okay, this is what I want to do for my career. And you kind of make conscious decisions, but there's that artistry of it. I always say dance is two parts. You have the sport and you have the art. The sport of it is the decision to doing it. It's the training. It's all the technical aspects of it. But the art of it is your heart, your spirit, your connection to the other people, what you're trying to create on stage, and using your body as the paintbrush. That is the art of it. And I think that's where, and the reason why you get so close to the people you're around, because you're really being exposed. You're naked, you know, from the inside out. And I think it's a really, really special thing to be a part of.
I agree. And do you feel like, from your perspective, do you think that some dancers sort of lose sight of the art and emotion behind it, and maybe get caught up in the choreography and the technique and the sport of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us probably do from time to time. I mean, I don't know. I'm not in anyone else's shoes. Yeah. I know that I have from time to time. But that's kind of, I think, part of the journey of it as well. You know, like anything, it becomes mundane. when you're doing 8 shows a week or however many shows, you might be doing in Vegas, you often do even more shows a week. So, on Broadway, I'm doing the same show for 3 years and I've been doing 8 shows a week. And I'm thinking about my grocery list while I'm on stage, singing a line and doing a tap step. It happens. It's inevitable. But that doesn't mean necessarily I think you've lost the artistry. And I think it gives you a reason to find it again. And that rediscovery of the artistry throughout your life is what keeps you going, is what keeps you passionate, and what makes it really special, because you can find that love for it again. I've lost it so many times. Just recently, and being quarantined, being self-isolated and being home, I've been teaching online on a great platform and trying to keep work going that way. But I'm teaching to a camera, but I'm not like in a film studio where I'm doing some big thing where I'm making all this money for it. I'm just standing there like, hi everyone, let me try to teach you something. And it was hard for me to find my artistry through that. But I think I've now found that again, and I'm learning and developing and finding my artistry through this way of doing it, and that is exciting.
Can you pinpoint something in those times when you feel when it becomes monotonous or stagnated, when you've been doing a show and it's the same thing every night? Is there something that you can pinpoint that's like, that's it, like it reignites that spark? You're like, oh my gosh, that's what I love. What brings that back for you?
That's a really good question. It's not something I've thought of before, but right off the top of my head, I would have to say that it can't be pinpointed, at least for me. And I think that's what makes it special, is because you never know where it's coming from. If you can pinpoint it, then you're like, oh, I'm not feeling good. Well, let me just do this because this proves that I can get my artistry, my passion back. And I don't know, at least for me, that it works that way. It's little things. It's just recently I got a message from one of my students expressing how I've helped her through some difficult times just by me teaching a class. And that is what just recently reignited my kind of passion of like, you know what, I am doing things that are helping someone. It's not just me standing in front of the camera being like, point your toes, and me trying to teach you how to stretch, but my body is broken at my older age. And so trying to teach how to stretch on camera, I'm like, I can't do this, but I hope you can, those kinds of things. And then get a message like that. And you're like, wow, I am touching people. I am helping someone. If even just that one person, then it's worth it. And I think throughout my career and throughout my life, all of those moments have been different and have kind of blindsided me. And that's the reason they've got me out of my funk.
That's a really cool way to explain it. It's true. It's hard to pinpoint. I mean, it could be as simple as watching a movie that had a dancer in it. And it's just like, oh, that's why I love it.
It's true. Yeah. Do you find yourself, I know I'm like this, my partner, John, always makes fun of me for it. I'll be watching a movie and they'll start talking about passion for whatever reason in the movie. And I start bawling. I'm like, that's how I feel. And that sometimes even ignites my passion. Or you see a dancer on television and you're like, I do that. And you're like, God, it's just so beautiful the way they move. How can they do that? I'm almost always in awe of dancers. I forget that I'm one because I don't look at myself the same way, but I see it in other people. And I just find it so magical and inspiring unto itself. And I am often in tears because of that passion, which I know is ridiculous, but it's how I am. So you either take it or you leave it.
It's not ridiculous at all. I totally understand that. I just watched the movie. I'm going to totally blank on the movie, but it brought me to tears. And the wife was a dancer, and she got hit by a car, and she couldn't dance anymore. And I was like, and then she opened up a studio, to continue her passion, and you could see her alone in the studio practicing after the students went home, and she's like falling because she doesn't. Her knees can't. I was like, and my history with my injuries as exactly. You have had as many performers, and I was like, it was a mess. But I'm like, wow, I could either take that as gratitude that I got the opportunity and that I've had the opportunity to be there, or I could twist it and be like, be bitter and now I can't do that. And I think that's important for dancers to to stay in the right mindset.
I agree. I think it's also important, since we're kind of on this subject of these deaths that dancers have. You know, throughout your career, you go through little micro deaths of career changes, of going from one thing, and then your body can't do that anymore. So you almost have to mourn the loss of your body moving in a certain way, and then accept the new way your body is moving, or the new things that you're creating. Right now, we've all gone through these micro deaths of not being able to perform in public or be on a stage or do things that we're used to doing. And so we have to mourn that death before we're able to kind of open ourselves up to a new forum, a new idea, a new way to express our artistry. And I think those continual changes through our artistry is one of the things that makes it really special. And the reason why we get so passionate and cry when we see other dancers who can't do what they want to do, or when you have those feelings of passion inside of you and you don't know what to do with them. You're like, I've got to get this out. And so you wind up creating a dance or eating a cheesecake, whatever it might be. That's been me recently, by the way.
Me too.
Yeah.
I had never heard that term, micro deaths. That's interesting. The way you
I haven't either. I just threw it out there. It kind of makes sense, though.
It does. It totally paints the picture of what a lot of dancers go through. And I don't think that's talked about enough, because it's inevitable. It's going to happen for dancers. And I don't think enough dancers are prepared for that reality.
I know I wasn't. And I don't know if you really can be, but I think if you start the conversation, that's going to be a good way to help it along. It's not something I ever thought about when you're younger and you're working, and you were fortunate. I was a very fortunate dancer where I got a lot of work and I kept working back to back. And so you don't think about that. I'd end a show and I'd be like, I'll just do another one whenever, I'll take a few months off and then I'll get another show. And then there comes a time when you start getting a little too older for the parts that you want to play, or your body starts to hurt a bit more and you're not able to, grab your leg and pull it back behind your head. Not that I ever was, but there are people who have to go through that micro death. Point being is your body changes and things change, and you have to let go of maybe certain ideas and certain wants you have for your career and change them. I don't ever say let go of them, but change those ideas and move with it. I believe if you want to stay in dance for the rest of your life, you can. I think age is something that we have put on ourselves and that people who hire us have put on us, but we don't have to listen to that narrative. We can make our own narrative and make our own work. But you have to be prepared for those micro deaths, and you have to be prepared to create something new.
To pivot and persevere.
Ooh, I like that. Yes.
Dancers pivot. Speaking of that, have you ever been in a time in your life where you thought you weren't going to be able to dance, that you would have to pivot and do something else?
I have. There's been a couple of times, but the most significant time is when I was doing a show called Wicked. I was part of the original cast in Australia, and I wound up getting some really bad back injuries. And I had my first herniated disc, and I wound up getting 2 herniated discs on top of one another. And it was really difficult. And I went through a period where I didn't know if I was going to be able to dance anymore. I will also say that during that period, nothing to do with the show. I absolutely loved the show. I love the people I worked with, but some of the people in charge were really difficult to work with the artistic directors and staff within Australia. And they made me question why I was ever a performer to begin with. And so having these doubts for the first time in my life, after being a performer for 20 years, maybe more, more. But so I'm hearing these doubts and I'm starting to have these doubts on myself. And then my back isn't working and everything I do hurts. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm never going to dance again. I don't know what I'm going to do. And that's when I first went into massage therapy and thought, I'm going to actually make this a career. And I also realized at the time, I'm a dancer. My body is my tool, and I know nothing about it. I couldn't have told you where my spleen was. I couldn't have told you how my endocrine system worked. I mean, I knew basic things from school growing up, but those things you just learn for a test weren't ingrained in me. And so I decided to go back and study the body and figure out what I could do for myself and what I could do for other dancers. And I was, like you said, pivoting my career and trying to find something different. And I have now since used the massage and physical therapy aspect in a lot of ways, personally and for other dancers. But I've also find my way back to dance. And I'm now dancing all the time, and I know what I need to do in order to take care of my body and how much I can push and how much I can't, and I take it from there. But that was a big moment. That was one of those micro deaths. That was me pivoting and going, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? Because all I've ever done, like a lot of us, is dance from the time I was 2. I've never wanted to do anything else. I've never thought of anything else. I've never had to do anything else. So it was a difficult time.
And I'm so glad you continued dancing.
Thank you.
I
Me
wouldn't have
too.
met you.
It's true.
We wouldn't be talking right now.
Yeah, it's true. But look at all the things that since that time that I have been able to do. I met Jody McDonald. Big shout out to Jody McDonald. You know, she's my business partner. We own our production company together, Ridicule Imitatio Productions, and I had met her prior to that, but had I not gone and persevered through that time, when I came back to the US, she and I would not have started our business. And it was because of pivots like that that I was able to create Limelight with Jody, to meet you, to meet a lot of amazing performers and dancers in Vegas, and have them now be a part of our production company family. And that's all because of those little pivots, and all those changes throughout your life lead you to something different. If you keep your heart open, if you keep your eyes open, then I think it can lead you to better things. You just have to listen, and that can be difficult.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to listen because you don't know, do I need to continue dancing, or do I need to pivot something else? Do I need to do both? It's hard to know.
Absolutely. And it's individual for everyone, isn't it? There's no right answer or no wrong answer either. It's
Yeah.
just, it's individual.
Absolutely. Do you think it'd be helpful for dancers to be a little more educated when it comes to our bodies and how to make it last a little longer? Because I was never really taught that either.
No, I think as time goes on, dancers are more educated in these days than we used to be. But I do think part of your education as a dancer should be studying the body, studying anatomy, studying physiology, knowing how things work, so that when you have pulled your hamstring, as I think probably most of us have done at some point in our life, you know how to rest it and what muscles to work in the meantime, beyond just going to your doctor, talking to a physical therapist. It's your tool. So you need to know how to use it and what works for you, because even though, you know, the physiology of bodies might be very similar, individual bodies are all different. Every time I put my hands on someone, a client for massage, it's like looking into the universe. Every body is similar, but it feels different, and you feel different knots, and this is slightly in a different place, or I don't know what the hell that is, so I better just kind of keep pushing through that. You know, things happen. So I think it's important to really know your own body, and you can only do that with knowledge and self-discovery and some learning. Yeah, so I definitely think it's important for all of us to do that for our career. I mean, it's like being a mason, but not knowing how your tools work.
That's a good
It doesn't
analogy.
make sense. It is, I think, important to know your tool. If you're a singer, you need to know your vocal cords and how they work and how they stretch and how to work them, warm them up, and what works for you. I think it's the same for a dancer, same for an actor, how to warm up those emotions and how to get them out of you. If you don't know those tools, then you're going to lack something, and you're going to get injured and not know what to do. And then you're going to listen to other people who say, well, you're too old to dance now. And then
Ugh.
you're not going to dance anymore. And I don't know about you, you're still quite young, but I've had many people be like, oh, you're too old to dance now. And I'm like, well, I don't think so. And I've continued to have an amazing career.
Good
And
for
I
you.
will continue forever.
Good.
As long as I'm walking.
Woohoo! So let's pivot a little bit. You did a commercial when you were little.
I did a lot of commercials when I was little. I did over 70, maybe 80 national commercials before the age of 12.
Wow.
My very first commercial was Quaker Oats, instant Quaker oatmeal. I was 2 years old or just roundabout. And I still remember the feel of the lights on my face and sitting at this chair in the commercial. I don't remember the whole day, but I think it's my first memories ever, or at least, memories that I can recall, the things that are tangible to me. Like I remember feeling the lights and seeing people in the background and the feel of the chair. It's strange, but yeah, I was known as the commercial kid. I did a lot of commercials.
I have to link the commercial. That's one of my favorite. Was it the Quaker Oats one?
Yeah.
Oh, it's
I'll make sure
adorable.
you have it if you don't have it already. It's so funny. It's one of those things that, like, when you're young and people bring up that commercial, I'd be like, oh, I'm all embarrassed and everything. And now I'm like, look how cute I was. You need to post this.
Hey,
Because I'm no longer cute. So now I like it.
you're adorable, Daniel. And you still are.
Aw.
Biggest heart too.
Oh, sweet.
So you grew up in a show business family, or your mother was a performer, wasn't she?
Yep, my mom was a dancer. She was the choreographer for the Righteous Brothers on tour, on the road, as well as she choreographed for a television show in the 60s called Shindig. And by the time I was coming around, being born, my mom was producing shows in Vegas. She used to have a show, Posh, which was at the Dunes, and at the time it was the Union Plaza. And it actually was in the same theater that we performed in at the Plaza in downtown Vegas, which I always thought was really amazing that I got to do my first big personal show in Vegas was in a theater that my mom had choreographed a show for as well. So I really liked that. But yeah, she did a lot of shows in Vegas back in that era of the 70s and 80s. And so as soon as I was born, I was kind of in the business. And I loved it. People are always like, oh, you must have had, a mom or parents that really pushed you into show business. And I've never felt that way. I've always felt like it's been my choice. My mom also owned a dance studio, and you know what it's like growing up in a dance studio. And I remember I would go into an audition for a commercial. Let's say I was 8 years old. It doesn't matter, but I'd be young. I'd be going into LA, have my audition. I grew up in the LA area. And then I would come back and we'd stop by the dance studio. But sometimes I'd be tired after an audition. I'd fall asleep in the car. And then I remember waking up after leaving the dance studio. I'd be with my dad and we'd be heading home and I'd start bawling because I didn't get a chance to go in and at least take one dance class at the dance studio. Like from as far as I can remember, dance has been my love and my passion. And I think it was instilled in me because my mother loves it. My mother is was an amazing performer. She's still a great person. She's around. She doesn't dance anymore. But she was really passionate and maybe not the best technician, but she was still a really beautiful performer. And that's what I got from her growing up, is that essence of performing. So I hope I get to share that with other people as well, because any kind of good performing they see from me is all because of my mom.
Oh, and you've talked about, and she's a sweetheart. I love her. I love your mom. You've talked about actually wanting to write a book about some of the stories she has and a lot of stories you have. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting. Now, this is one of those things that you talk about. I don't know if it will ever happen, but I've actually had a lot of people approach me as well, being like, you need to write a story, because my mother has these crazy, interesting stories from being on the road during, the 60s, in an era where racism was alive, very similar to things today, which I won't get into because this isn't the platform for that. But the stories that she has of being on the road in the 60s with an all black band and her as the only white female dancer is quite impressive. And interesting. And then I have my own stories of, whatever it's been, over 40 years of performing, of doing everything but jump out of a cake at a Rotarian banquet. Like I've done all the things. So I thought it would be fun to kind of take her stories and my stories and put them together within a fictional setting so that it's not too much about us, but just the stories through a fictional character. And I don't know how that would ever work because I'm not a writer, but I think it would be fun. And the older I get, maybe I might take pen to paper and start working something out. I've always loved writing. I love reading. So
I hope you do, because I would read it and I think it would be a fantastic book. Just hearing some of your stories alone, oh, that would be a fascinating book.
it would be interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, you've had an interesting life, Daniel.
I have been really blessed. If nothing else, I remind myself, because just to kind of go back about dancers, is all our little micro deaths that we've called it. I get those moments where I'm like, oh, well, what am I going to do now? Are all my best years behind me? In my 40s, I'm thinking that, which is really sad. But it's because I've done all these great things. And then I remind myself, I've never let my life be anything but an adventure. So why would that change now? The adventures might change. They might be, but they may not be on a big Broadway stage again. They may not be traveling, dancing, 16 shows a week on the road, but it's going to be an adventure. And I've started my new adventure with my homestead. I've got my chickens. I have 2 amazing dogs. I have a great partner. I teach all the time. I'm traveling now teaching. Well, not at the moment, but there's a company, Tam Jams, that I travel around the US teaching young kids in dance studios passion. I think she even calls it passion to power. And I like that. I like being part of a group that tries to instill the love. Because whether you're going to have dance as a career, performing as a career, I think it can bring you so much joy and understanding about yourself in a way that not a lot of other things can do.
Mm.
It's a really beautiful thing to be a part of. I'm thankful.
I love how you explain that. Speaking of, what's your favorite show memory?
That is a really tough one. I will tell you 2 quick memories. I don't know if they're my favorite, but the first 2 that came to mind. A really good memory for me was my first show on Broadway was Saturday Night Fever. We opened in 99 on Broadway, and we were all young, and it was like our college years. We really connected. We loved each other. We were crazy, and we were all really getting to the peak of our dance career. And I was one of the ensemble members, and I was covering one of the principals who the character's name was Double J. And in a last minute problem, I don't even remember what happened, but the guy who played Double J couldn't go on. But it was so early in the run that we hadn't had our rehearsals as understudies yet, because this was like our first week or very early on in the beginning. And so they looked at me and they're like, "You're on tonight in 3 hours." So I got to the theater. I learned all the choreography. I'd have the script. And while I would be backstage, I'd be changing. I'd have one person putting a shoe on my left foot, another put a glove on my right arm. And I'm sitting there trying to read the script to learn my lines of the scene that were coming up. And the quick change would be done. I'd run out and I'd be like looking, where do I stand on stage? And everyone would just kind of grab me and move me to the blocking to where I needed to be. And I would remember these lines and say it. And it was exhilarating. It was exciting. It was nerve-wracking. It was terrifying, but so much fun. It made me feel so alive. And I wound up doing it well enough to where shortly after I wound up being offered the principal role and took it. So that's a really good memory for me. And it's a good reminder that you need to always push. You need to know what everyone else is doing in the room. And that way you can always do it. That was an exciting memory. And just one other quick memory was a funny memory, actually in a show I did in Reno, Splash, which happens to be a show where I met someone you know.
Yeah.
and and I was thrown on again for a role where I had to be Batman. And you had to ride this jet ski that was on wheels across the stage. But I was young, and the Batman costume they put on me didn't quite fit. So it was like over my eyes. And I had to come out of this tunnel of smoke. And as the smoke came, it opened up, and I just hit the jet ski and I start going. And I'm like, oh, I have to say I'm Batman. I'm like, I am Batman. And it goes across the stage. And I'm like, okay, I did this, no problem. And then I hear screaming, and I look to where my jet ski is headed, and it's headed to the ramp where all the cat women are dancing, and they just scream and they jump out of the way as my jet ski hits the ramp, flips over, falls down on its side. I'm laying on the ground toward the edge of the stage near the wings, and I'm trying to get off stage, dragging this heavy jet ski as quickly as I can off the wings. It was embarrassing. It was mortifying. And to this day, one of my favorite memories from some stupid reason.
Oh my goodness. See, I told you all he has the best stories.
It's because I'm crazy.
Oh, and I love you for it. So, do you have any any message or thoughts to fellow performers or artists that you either wish you would have known or you would just like to give a message out for?
Yeah, as I've mentioned before, I feel very fortunate to be a dancer, to be a performer, and to have the career that I've had. I think it's important to remember that as performers. We often get caught up in whatever gig we're doing and maybe feeling a little bit elitist because of certain kinds of gigs that we might be doing. But performing is performing. And we should be thankful no matter where we are that we're able to perform and that we're able to do this and that you stay humble. And I think it's gotten better throughout the years, but dancers can be really mean to one another. And I understand why, because it's competitive. But I think we can be competitive and do our best at the same time as uplifting our fellow dancers and our performers and helping them. Because the better everyone is around us, the better we are as well. And although dance is great, it is not the end all. Who you are as a person is the end all. And I think we need to remember that. I think we need to help one another. And I also, just on a business side of it, I really think we need to stand up for what we're worth. I think oftentimes we take gigs as dancers because we got the gig, so we take it. It doesn't matter how much they pay us, so we'll just do it anyway. Or, well, the producer says that they can't pay us right now, but that's okay because I'm just happy to be dancing. And I think there are times and places for all of those things, but I think you need to know your self-worth. And I think you need to stay strong with that. And I think you need to uplift and be there as a support system for all your fellow dancers and everyone around you. And at the end of the day, love what you're doing. Remember why you're doing it. Feel that love, feel that passion. And if things change in your life and you're not feeling it, then explore the reasons why and find what helps you find that passion and that love again. And that might mean having a little micro death and pivoting and finding something else. But when you do, it will be better and you'll be happier in the long run. And if you've got a great gig, hold on to it for as long as you can because it may not come back around.
I know all too well.
Words of wisdom.
I'm not going to add anything on top of that because that was perfectly said. That was beautiful, Daniel. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.
How can people find you?
So I am not great with online presence stuff. I do have my Facebook. Anyone is welcome to follow me on Facebook. My name is Danial Brown. I'm sure you'll see it in a bio or something. My company is Ridicula and Metasio Productions. I'll make sure that you have a link to that as well to see all the new shows. A lot of my shows now are set here in the Pacific Northwest. It's where I've moved my life. And so I do shows in Portland and Seattle and hopefully a lot new things. Once things are opening up again, I want to start creating a lot of new work for a lot of people. I try to be inclusive. of all creeds and colors and races and backgrounds and sexuality and whatever you want to do. I really try to be inclusive of all those things and have fun. For me, ultimately, I love performing. I love creating on great performers. So that's what I do. So I hope you guys had fun speaking with me, and I will send you those links so you can find me.
Oh, thank you so much, Daniel. I so appreciate this. And this has been a fantastic interview. I love the stories. I can't wait to launch this.
Thank you, Priscilla. Honestly, I've had such a great time with you. You are not only an amazing performer, but an amazing person, and your heart always shines through before anything else. And that's one of the things that I love about you. And you are wicked talented and have a cute little tushy, so that always helps.
Thank you, Daniel. That means a
Better
lot.
keep that in there.
Especially the last part. That last part
Exactly.
means the most. I'm just kidding.
I love it.
Thank you so much, Daniel.
Thank you, Priscilla. Thank you, everyone.
It's Priscilla Pfeiffer. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please subscribe, leave a comment so I can reach more people like you. And go to sparkyourinnerfire.com. I have a special gift for you. Go check it out.